Uh, Wonderful. Good morning, folks. Welcome to our session on leveraging business responsibility and sustainable reporting and code of conduct for a competitive advantage. So it's a very interesting session we have for you today. We talk a lot about BRSR, but do we truly understand, how one needs to integrate that? Is it just going to be a check the box kind of situation, or are corporates really taking it to a level where it can actually be more than a check in the box and really be something that can be leveraged for a competitive advantage? At Rainmaker, we've always sort of been votaries of a code of conduct that really is not just something that exists on paper, but something that is becomes part of an organization's DNA. And today we want to discuss how the objective of today's session really is: can we go beyond just compliance? Can we use the BRSR and the CoC? And it's a topic that's not really been discussed too much in recent times in terms of as a combination. But can we use the two as a strategic tool for gaining a competitive edge? Do corporates really believe that this can give them a competitive edge? And, explore innovative ways to integrate sustainability and ethics into the core of an organization's business operations, right? And so that's really what we have lined up for you today. And we have two very, very illustrious guests, folks who have two professionals who really have spent many years in this space and who have a deep understanding of the subject, having sort of worked in organizations for many years that have developed their expertise. So I want to very quickly introduce our, it may not be a very quick introduction because I really would like to spend some time to explain to you their background, what they have done, so that you really understand the perspective that they bring to the table. Our first guest is Amit Vyas. Amit, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Amit serves as the head legal and company secretary at NOCIL Limited, and he's held this position since 2019. Amit's career has spanned almost 3 decades, and he's a seasoned corporate lawyer and a group company secretary at NOCIL. Previously, Amit's professional background has sort of been very varied, very rich. You could say that he's worked with some of India's most compliant organizations, including Procter & Gamble, SBI Caps, and Larsen & Toubro. Now, Amit, throughout his career, has spearheaded critical business processes, including building robust risk management frameworks, leading CSR and sustainability initiatives, and achieving best ESG standards, as well as managing industrial relationships or relations with the unions. Now, interestingly, and I learned this a little bit about Amit yesterday when we are having a chat, Shujath, Amit and I. Amit's very passionate about legal journalism, and he has contributed to very, very renowned publications such as Legal Era, Chartered Secretary, and LinkedIn Business Law Journal. He has also authored books on company law and insider trading. So with this rich background and experience, we are delighted to have him join us as a speaker at this Rainmaker all-inclusive webinar, leveraging BRSR and CoC for a competitive advantage. Once again, Amit, thank you so much for joining. Absolutely delighted to have you on board today for this discussion.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here and share my views, as well as hear the views of my fellow colleague Shujath. I think he's also highly experienced and renowned at various forums. It will be very interesting to get to know of his experiences.
Very much. In fact, Shujath is somebody I have had the pleasure of meeting at multiple forums where he's a speaker, and one really gets the full breadth of Shujath's expertise. To really get the breadth of Shujath's expertise, you have to hear him speak at multiple forums, because there are so many topics that Shujath speaks on. But let me, without further ado, introduce Shujath to all of you. Shujath Bin Ali is the Global General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Sustainability Limited. Now, Sustainability is a KKR-backed private equity firm. Shujath leads the global legal and compliance, corporate governance and secretarial, ethics and risk management functions. He's also a member of the ESG committee, risk management committee, and DEI council. Before Re-Sustainability, Shujath was Senior Director, Legal Risk Management and Company Secretary at Paraxel International, India, and Senior Legal Counsel and Corporate Secretary for International Paper India. Shujath has also served as AVP, Associate Vice President, Legal and Corporate Secretary for Deloitte US India offices, heading the Legal and Corporate Affairs function. Shujath has over 22 years of experience in governance, compliance, risk management, corporate and commercial laws, employment laws, and litigation across diverse industries. Shujath holds a degree in commerce and law, and he's a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He's also completed executive programs from Harvard, ISB, and NLS. Shujath has been recognized as one of India's finest in-house counsels and amongst the top 100 general counsels in India by Legal500.com, Forbes India, and the Business World magazine. Shujath, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really, really excited to have you here as a speaker, and we look forward to your valuable insights at this Rainmaker all-inclusive webinar, leveraging BRSR and CoC for a competitive advantage.
Thanks, Antony, for the opportunity, and look forward to have a good conversation with the very esteemed panelist Amit, who I know since last several years. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for joining. So we have the objective is to really cover a couple of points today in terms of really, as I mentioned, the objective really is to see if we can bring out why BRSR, leveraging BRSR and CoC together can really give organizations a competitive advantage, and also how to make it part of an organization's DNA, so to speak. But just before that, a little bit of a background for our listeners. As you're all aware, India has started to take. We're a fast-growing economy, and with that comes, of course, a lot of challenges with respect to climate change. And India has, I think, been one of the real large economies and countries around the world that really wants to take greater initiative in sort of combating climate change and, of course, meeting the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, right? So the SDGs, as they call it. And one of the key things that has sort of been the leader for us in this space is the introduction of the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting Guidelines by SEBI, popularly known as BRSR. SEBI introduced this in 2021. And the reporting is basically based on the 9 principles of National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct, or NGRBC, which was again being introduced by SEBI. Now, we're not going to go into all of that today, but just to give you a little bit of background. Now, when did this BRSR again is, the shape and form in which we see it today is not how it originally was, right? The sort of foundation was laid way back in 2009. The MCA, or India's Ministry of Corporate Affairs, introduced the Business Responsibility Reporting Guidelines. This was way back in 2009, or BRR. BRR served as the platform or the foundation on which the ESG framework, ESG reporting framework could be developed. And this is the basis on which we, over the years, SEBI from 2012 all the way until today, has continued to refine, evolve, and finesse these guidelines, and today they are in the shape of what we call as BRSR, right? So this is basically the BRR. Originally was, SEBI's BRR in 2012 was originally applicable to the top 100 listed companies, but now it has now evolved into BRSR, which is today applicable to, I think, the top 1,000 listed companies in India. So this is the background. This is the framework. With this, I would like to dive straight into our discussion, because I think what we're looking for is really to understand from our panelists, right, the convergence of BRSR and CoC. So Amit and Shujath, I'd love to get your thoughts on what is firstly BRSR, right? Both of you work in organizations where this is something that is of key importance to the organization. What are your thoughts on how we can integrate BRSR in a code of conduct, and do we just do it in terms of getting some changing the code of conduct and then distributing it to everybody? Is there a better way to do it in the world we live in? Would love to get your preliminary thoughts on this.
Shujath, you would like to start, or should I?
Yeah, you could start, Amit. Yeah.
Okay. See, Alex, the experience with BRSR has been very well established with sustainability coming in. And sustainability nowadays is a buzzword, as we had corporate governance 20 years back. Corporate governance was a big buzzword 20 years back, and finally it has settled down in spirit to a large extent in India. BRSR is clearly a replica of sustainability initiatives, I would say, and code of conduct is basically a part and a portion of the BRSR. See, if we see BRSR as a document which has to be complied with the policies and all as a tick box approach, that doesn't really serve the purpose. Because if we go into the spirit of BRSR and we apply that particular aspect in spirit, as well as we communicate it very effectively to the entire organization across, I think that makes fulfills the objective of BRSR, because ultimately it is sustainability which is going to be there. And BRSR, I think, has been well drafted on that front. It has been viewed as very strict by some corporates, and SEBI has come out with a consultation paper also to dilute some of the provisions and make it more so the ease of doing business in India. They are going to dilute a few provisions, but the fact is that it is much more important than the annual report. It is much ritual documents. It is a BRSR that the world is going to look at, and with rating coming in, with limited assurance and reasonable assurance and all those things coming in, I think these agencies don't just look at your records and say that yes, you are done. It is more of the spirit in which you have complied with. They interview your employees. They have understood code of conduct. What exactly is code of conduct? What are the components of code of conduct? All those things are practically examined, verified, and then there is a reasonable assurance or a limited assurance report that is prepared. So it is going to be judged and evaluated on a very, very scientific basis as compared to a technical ritualistic basis. I think this is the best opportunity for corporates in India to start their journey towards sustainability. And sustainability is going to be the key buzz in another 20 years.
Understood, Amit. Thank you so much for that perspective. Shujath, your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think to start with, right now organizations are looking BRSR, or we may call ESG and sustainability, in different buckets, and every company is at a different maturity stage. Even now, for some of the organizations, it is more like a reporting aspect. Some organizations are thinking it as a compliance. Few of the evolved organizations are thinking it from a risk management aspect. But evolved organizations are looking it as a part of the way they do the business, embedding this as part of a strategy. I think that's what we see, how the organizations are pursuing this whole subject. So, of course, BRSR, if you see the whole format, at this point of a time, it is a reporting aspect. But if you see the section B part of it, I think, which is more important, clearly is talking about how is the tone at the top, what is the management approach, what kind of a policies are there, what kind of a processes are there, how they are effective and how are they efficient. I think that is the part which is slightly beyond the reporting part, which is section C is talking about. But when you look into whole organization, I mean, most of the companies may have different policies or code of conduct and business ethics as well. But if you just analyze all the principles and the number of policies which the company may needed, it may be close to around 40 policies. While the companies may have policies, at the end of the day, having the mother document or the way the company want to do the business or the way the company want to conduct themselves is something can be enshrined in the code of conduct or code of conduct and business ethics. And we all know that is a document which is adopted by the board, and it gets that kind of a sanctity. So I think that's a great opportunity for the organizations who want to really comply and do the business in letter and spirit, to evaluate their existing code of conduct and incorporate all these elements. While we have different policies, right? whether it is on environment, whether it is on labor, whether it is on human rights, whether it is on dealing with the vendors, there can be specific statements as to how the company is going to deal with each of these elements, which is there, across the whole BRSR or the 9 principles of what we may call. So I think that's a great opportunity for the companies to look this, from the way they want to do the business than merely from a compliance standpoint or from a reporting standpoint, or from a simple risk management approach. I mean, that's the preliminary thoughts, I have, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Shujath. So I just want to kind of, sort of get to, the principles that SEBI's mandate. For example, principle one is emphasis on businesses to govern themselves with integrity in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. Now, these are the kind of principles that that are very broad in scope, right? When one reads it, how does one really put up get to the sort of nuts and bolts of governing themselves with integrity in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable? There's a lot in there. So I would like to maybe get both of your thoughts on some of these aspects. How does one go about it? Training programs, for example, right? You have employees that really need to you have to cover the board, because even the board needs to have a deep understanding. It's not like the board of directors of a company are experts in every area, right? Just by virtue of sitting on the board. They also need to understand what these sort of ESG guidelines are, or what BRSR is, or what the principles are. You need your key management personnel trained, the CXOs or the C-suites, mid-level managers, employees, workers, etc. So is this something that organizations are now really saying, I need to get this done, and I need to make sure that every one of my employees, it's not just about integrating BRSR into the CoC. We can always take that, plug it. Like Shujath, you said there are 40 odd policies that need to be framed. But how do we really get people to understand, right? How strong is the level of understanding within corporates? In your view, are all employees really getting it, or is it really at the senior level, at the very, very top, and percolating down is going to take time? Does it vary from organization to organization? I'm guessing it does. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think this will also include integrity, meaning you may need to also focus on anti-corruption measures, right? So your thoughts,
Yeah, I'll take it, Amit, if you're fine. I'm kind of interacting with, some of the independent directors, potential independent directors, in fact, even some of the leaders of various organizations. And, when you talk about the awareness levels, I think there is a strong sense of interest to, get more awareness from a board level itself. I myself have done some of the sensitization programs at a board level. So you're absolutely right, when we talk about all these aspects, which covers variety of elements, and boards being diverse, coming from different backgrounds, it's absolutely important, to understand all these principles and all the aspects of the ESG. So, in terms of board sensitization, the beginning has to happen at a board level, wherein there are some specific board sensitization training programs that happen, and subsequently the board start putting it as one of the agenda items. And some of the aspects could also be with respect to the governance. Today the SEBI guidelines doesn't talk about a mandatory ESG committee, but evolved organizations are thinking in terms of how do we govern this whole aspect. So there could be a specific board committee or an executive ESG council or a sustainability council or whatever we may want to call. I think from there, I think the program has to get evolved. Of course, it starts with the current strategy, what they are, how they can embed all these elements. Also, with respect to what are the current policies, what are the current processes, and how do they, integrate that. And more importantly, the tone at the top. Of course, tone at the top is more important, but belief at the bottom and mood at the middle also is equally important. And when we talk about the whole training aspect, I think the first question comes in the why part of it. And in my experience, what I've seen, whether I train the board or the the executives or middle management, or even at the in ground level, I think the first question, if we try to address the why part, it all starts with the global conversations, the climate change, the human rights, why it is really important. And when we talk about all those examples, the global conversations, the pull factors, the push factors, and how it is really impacting the organization, I think when we see people getting the why part, I think the acceptability and appreciation of the subject increases a lot. Then I think a lot of things, just like we manage any other program, I mean, you can always have a committee, the policies, programs, strategy, long-term goals, short-term goal, medium-term goals, and have a proper governance program. But I think the why part of it, if we really able to hit it, I think that would go a long way. I have a few more examples, but I would want the discussion going on.
No, we'd love to come back to that, Shujath. Also, a little bit about we had spoken about a couple of things at your organization that you've done, at your initiatives that you've done, which I think are very critical in terms of building a culture of compliance. But Amit, your thoughts?
Sure. See, I'll share you example in NOCIL. We are a hazardous chemical industry. And the company has to follow very, very stringent guidelines on pollution control, environment protection, and all that. Fortunately for us, our technical side has been very, very strong, and we have been beyond the compliances. We have attained responsible care certification for the last 8 years. It's a international certification that your systems, your plant are absolutely safe, hygienic for the employees working in the premises as well as the people around your plant. So this was one part which was taken care of by the technical people much prior to even the BRR or BRSR. So when we started with the ESG, our directors, fortunately, all the independent directors, they were absolutely conversant with sustainability as a global concept which is developing. So they started with the first thing is environment. Environment, they said that, yes, we are very certain that we are there. About 70% of our carbon emission targets and all those things are there. But then let us get into S and G, which is your governance part and the policy part. So we started first with the ESG charter. We prepared a charter and the board was absolutely aligned, and there was fantastic contribution done by our directors. Second thing was how do we disseminate this whole concept of sustainability, because we as professionals understand what it is, and in fact many of the professionals don't understand the difference between ESG sustainability. They think it's a part of the same ball. It's not so. So we started with small training programs for our employees at the plants, at our head office. And we told them in very simple language that how the environment has been detrimentally impacted by the practices around, the way we have been dumping plastic, the way pollution has been harming the environment. What will happen after another 15 years, 10 years, 15 years? What are we doing to the environment? And how do we, in simple manner, we preserve this, we ensure that we don't damage it further? For example, elimination of plastic, saving of paper, saving of water, saving of energy, all those things. So this is a way we introduced this whole concept of sustainability, because we could not get a Hindi word of sustainability. I think there is a word, but it's very, very complicated to even pronounce it. So we started with our plants first, and we imbibed this whole thing that we are going to embark on this sustainability. So hold on, we have a lot of policies. इसके लिए आपको ट्रेनिंग दी जाएगी, विल गिव यू ट्रेनिंग फॉर इट, और उसको हम लोग पूरा मन और तन धन से हमको सपोर्ट करना है. That's what we communicated to the workmen, because we have about 800 workmen and we have got about 200 executive staff. So definitely the workmen are the people who are going to be impacted by this more. Then we started with small training programs for our executive staff or managerial staff on code of conduct to begin with. Code of conduct was already there in the company since the last 10 years. But then, it was confined to the senior management, KMPs and the directors. And they all know that, they are not supposed to indulge in inside trading. They need to be compliant. They need to follow certain practices. But then percolating that downwards was the biggest challenge. So when we identified the policies like anti-bribery, POSH, gender diversity, we had to sit and do a scientific evaluation of who are the stakeholders who have to be trained thoroughly, rigorously on these policies. When it came to POSH, we started with POSH across. I mean, nobody was to be spared from this. And we went right up to the contracted workmen, even the retainers who come for a limited time on the premises of this company, like auditors, internal auditors. And we trained them and sensitized them in every aspect of POSH, internally by one-on-one trainings as well as through personal training before we went for the e-learning modules. And that's how we started the entire process. We started with POSH. And then we started with corrupt practices, anti-corrupt practices. We identified employees who are dealing with government departments, with consultants dealing with government departments. And initially there was a lot of pushback that, see, in India, things happen, you have to get things done. We had nothing doing. This getting things done and all things are of the past. You'll have severe implications if you indulge in this. So let us be very clear that let us do everything on merit instead of jumping around and trying to do some kind of pushing job and chase files and all that. So no grease money and no speed money. These were the two essences that we introduced. And fortunately for us, people understood. I'll tell you, people inherently are very, very compliant and very ethical. The only thing is that because of business compulsions and there's a common notion in India that unless you know how to manage people, you won't get successful. I think that notion is just a common this thing, and people do that. Of course, there are a lot of corporates who are doing that, but inherently, I think all our citizens are definitely very, very ethical. So they took no time in understanding the code of conduct, starting with POSH, then going to anti-bribery, then coming to conflict of interest, then coming to other policies like social media and your related party transactions and your insider trading. And then we also went into compliance. Now, compliance as against a ticking job function, we went into e-learning modules for all our employees at the plants, at our regional offices, at the head office. We had spent about 3 to 4 months on doing those training programs. And first reaction was that, we are already working, we are already overworked. How do we get into this compliance? So we told them that you are already compliant, you are doing this. What we want to know is that is there any deviation where you feel that there is a problem or you don't understand a particular provision? And we made them understand that this is what you're doing already and this is what we need to do. So they started, and I think after about 2 years of training, they're all very, very well acclimatized to the software that we have on compliance. Every quarter, on a religious basis, they ensure that things are done. If it is not done, they highlight it. And now we are going to introduce compliance independent audits also to verify that. But that compliance culture has, gone so deep into people that for any small issue, they may not be technically an expert. They immediately come back to the compliance department and ask that whether I can do this or I can't do this. So that question itself is very important. And we feel that it has percolated downwards. So that's how we have started in the last 2 years. And I think it has spread across quite well. It has been well.
Amit, that sounds very, very impressive actually. And it sounds like you've done a lot of work in this space, particularly in getting your workforce sort of up to speed, training them, sensitizing them. And I love what you said about, our folks, our people being inherently compliance oriented. It's very true, actually. I think at heart, most of us, our default setting is to be compliant, right? Nobody really wants to not be compliant. It's just that the tone at the top is, as you rightly said, is very important. And that's what really determines how the employees or the workforce in an organization react or decide what needs to be done. So if the tone at the top is very clear that this is how we are compliant as a company, and then I think it becomes very clear, it percolates down very quickly, and everybody falls in line. So that's very helpful. I just want to cover one point, and then Shujath, come back to you as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about your initiatives, organizational initiatives at Sustainability. But I also want you to add an aspect which covers sort of principle 3 of the SEBI regs, the guidelines, emphasis on businesses' efforts to respect and promote the well-being of all employees, right, including those in their value chain. So this is, I think, principle 3. Now, practices and policies that promote equity, dignity, and well-being for employees and workers involved in its value chain. And value chain, I guess, also includes those who are not just employees and workers, but possibly vendors and other stakeholders as well, right? Without discrimination and in a way that respects diversity. Now, this is something where we are now starting to really, I feel like the way the BRSR and the NGRBC, guidelines and principles are drafted, we are really looking to change the way people interact with at the workplace. So it's no longer just about compliance with, let's say, environmental laws or the sustainability regulations, but also we are looking to see how people interact at the workplace and to make a change for the better. So I get the feeling that SEBI is really trying to, cast the fishing net out wide in an effort to try and see how we can change the thinking of people at the workplace for the better, right? So not just compliance, but also, when you talk about respect, promote the well-being of all employees. Now, these are all very, of course, these are again terms that have, you can interpret it any different way, and you can say, okay, I've done this for, promoting the well-being of all my employees and other stakeholders in the value chain, etc. But it seems like SEBI really wants to, at least in these principles and guidelines, really wants organizations to start thinking about how their workforce and how their employees interact at the workplace. So, would love to hear both your thoughts on this before we move to the next point. And Shujath, if you could take a minute to just share some of the initiatives that your organizations also.
Sure. So I'll first cover the initiatives aspect, then I'll try to address the value chain and the people aspect, if that's fine. So I think we have been discussing about the impact of the people and the training and the capacity building and all. So firstly, if you see, a lot of our organizations are diverse. I mean, we have huge complex policies, and like lawyers, we have like huge number of pages and all. But when it comes to the employee, I mean, all they ask is, can I simply have a do's and don'ts one pager? I mean, do I have FAQs? I don't understand this language. Can we have this aspect in a very simple language? So what we did, we created, the documents and the policies or whatever are required, and also the larger code of ethics into a simple one-pager do's and don'ts document, or like a, 10 golden commandments kind of an approach, and also kept some FAQs and some, simple, questions as well, so that they can really understand. And of course, some of these things we try to create in terms of collaterals, nice, the posters and, some small videos and all, so that it is really, engaging, and they really understand, because the whole purpose, of an organization of having these policies and code of conduct and ethics is not just to have a tick box approach. If you want to achieve any of the goals under the ESG, the support of the employees on the ground or at the middle is really needed. So I think this is something what, we have done, in terms of, simplifying. Now, apart from that, when we do the training, I think it's absolutely important to keep it very, very simple in terms of the stories. I mean, we have used examples, from spiritual arena as well. When you really cut across the spiritual lines and, be very personal, and talk about and examples of parenting, right? I mean, we saw that what exactly you teach your children, that's the same thing, what some of these complex policies are expecting out of, all of us. When we try to hit these examples, and when we give the scenarios or the consequences, what is happening across the world and how it is impacting personal lives, professional lives, and also some of the business disruptions happening, we see a greater appreciation towards this concept, because prima facie employees comes with this background. Oh my God, ESG, BRSR, or sustainability, risk compliance are very huge terms. But when we bring these huge terms in a very simple manner, we see the attention of the employee coming in. I mean, that's one aspect what we have seen, and we try to make the training in a very simple manner. So that is one aspect. And over a period of time, the whole employee engagement and the culture building is something which we try to focus on. So since last 3 to 4 years, every year we do either ethics, and we started off with ethics and compliance week. Then subsequently we did a ESG month. Over a period of time, we did a sustainability month, integrity month, and recently compliance month. And the whole objective of this particular month would be to do various activities, and we try to gamify some of these complex topics. I mean, what we did was, we asked the employees and gave all these themes. We give some 5 themes and ask them to create an art around these topics, create some skits, create some plays, create some small videos, right? And also possibly use some drawings, paintings, and also encourage their family also to be participative of some of these. I mean, we see employees also working with their children as well. And it was also a good media to do a lot of crowdsourcing content from the employees. On a model of TED Talks, I mean, we also asked employees to volunteer and speak on these topics. So, I mean, we had employees speaking on these topics, and in this particular month, we started off with a leadership meeting, inaugurating the whole stuff, and subsequently we did some panel discussion, just like what we all attend in the conferences, creating a business panel, creating a functions panel, and make them talk about these aspects and why it is really important. I mean, wherein we are the moderators, but making the conversation happening at multiple level. Again, this is in addition to the routine mandatory training trainings and all that stuff. I mean, here we are just trying to engage the employees. I mean, we also did something unique this year. We created games around compliance, like snake and ladder game we used to explain this concept. And some of the the video games like Fruit Ninja and Santa and all. I mean, we integrated games and compliance and made people play, and somewhere or the other, it hits them, strong as well. And I think we also uh, did a playbook wherein we asked all the sites across the world to follow the particular format. I mean, we created acronyms. We asked employees to come up with some codes, make little bit of fun as well. I think when we do that, the result is, I mean, we see all our employees, they speaking about the concept which we want them to understand, and that's the great way wherein they are actually understanding. I mean, an employee is talking about a posh case, an employee is creating a scenario around conflict of interest, right, by virtue of all these aspects. And I think at the end of the month, we celebrate, we do a little bit of competition wherein we'll say which department is participating more, who is more creative and all, and end the whole event wherein we invite the board members and do a virtual ceremony and celebrate. So we're trying to talk about some of these serious subjects in a very engaging manner. And I strongly believe, I think the culture building can really happen when we have events like this. At least this worked for us, and we have been doing since several years. Yeah, so in addition to the training programs, if we can integrate the culture building, the employee engagement, and bring these subjects, I think it would be useful. That's the story which I wanted to share.
Oh, Shujath, fantastic stuff. Really very inspiring, very impressive. I think gamification I think we've been talking about it for a while now, for a few years, in terms of it's the way to go if you want to really engage with your employees, right? With the workforce, to really make them feel like, okay, it's not just something that I need to do because it is being told to do, but really it's something that I enjoy doing. I'm learning, and it's interesting for me, right? And I think that you've really caught on to something very interesting in terms of how you can really engage with the workforce by gamification.
And Antony, just to add a point on the value chain,
yeah,
we did a similar thing to the train our vendors as well. I mean, that's an important point. While we
super.
train our employees with respect to all those policies and all,
Yeah,
because of the BRSR approach, wherein it will soon talk about the disclosures for the value chain. I'm sure it will be a graded approach, but even in European Union, if you see, I think although the value chain, the vendors and all, whether it is not applicable directly, indirectly through the BRSR or through the EU regulations, it is absolutely important that your the vendors and the contractors are also required to comply, and that obligation will be there. But it is responsibility of the organizations to build that capacity by virtue of providing some trainings to these vendors, providing the resources as well, and at the same time ensuring the welfare of not only the employees but also the contractors, the subcontractors and all. And I think the principle largely intends that focus should be on the welfare of the people, safety not only of your employees but your contractors, subcontractors, and the vendors as well, so that even the value chain also understands these principles and follow in the same manner. It is not good just if you are doing the right thing and your subcontractor or vendor is not doing because of the scope 3 emissions and so on and so forth. So
yeah.
I think that's the few thoughts which I wanted to share.
No, definitely. I think it's clear that more and more organizations are focused on getting everybody in the value chain, getting all stakeholders, taking everybody along. It won't be sufficient because it's essentially the entire chain has to be linked. So fair enough. So I think thank you for those thoughts, Amit. Any sort of points you want to add to that before?
Yeah. I'll share with you. The CSR initiatives that we had taken up and how exactly CSR ever since it was introduced, companies have been saying that okay, this is a contribution to be made 2% of the average annual profits. A lot of corporates have indulged in dubious practices of creating their own NGOs and routing the funds. In our case, since our promoters for the past 50 years have been doing fantastic benevolent activities, I think CSR integrated very well. So as far as we were concerned, we contribute to organizations like the Olympic Gold Quest, which is doing a great job. All the handicapped, sports persons of the country, they bring them up. They contribute towards their medical, towards their diet, everything, and they have won gold medals. We have on record all the gold medalists for India who are from the handicap category in table tennis, in boxing, in athletics, and we are very proud that we are a part of Olympic Gold Quest. So this was something where we felt delighted that we are contributing something to our India's progress and to those people who are from very poor families, handicapped, unfortunately, and they are doing something which is making India proud. Secondly, we had an audition like the Cancer Patients Aid Association. Okay, we sponsored this organization. They conducted surgeries on serious cancer patients, including breast surgeries. We as a legal team used to go and attend to these patients in the hospitals where they were operated. We used to take the interviews on video. We used to ensure that apart from the compliance of that, the funds have been deployed towards that purpose. We interviewed the patients. We interviewed the beneficiaries of all these programs. And we presented all this to our CSR committee and the board. It was phenomenal. So as a result of which, the Economic Times Legal Award for support to CSR initiatives, the first time ever that this award was introduced last year. And the first question was that how does legal get involved in CSR? How does legal become so active? So I had to explain the entire process in the interview. I had to share the videos that we had created, how we had ensured that, the beneficiaries, basically CSR is more is objective only when you reach out to the beneficiaries and see that your funds have benefited that person. So with all these things, they found that no, it is a category of awards. They awarded NOCIL with the best legal support to CSR initiatives for the last year. And it was a big thing because first and foremost question was legal support. Legal support is for compliance, litigation, contract management, policies. But how come CSR? So CSR, the way we integrated that into our ESG policies was, I think, something which we are really proud of today. So this was a very critical part that we added to the ESG initiatives. On a very simple note, in my head office, there was a question raised that how do we ensure that we are compliant with the environment, or how do we contribute to the environment protection? That was one question raised. And then we had a training program that first of all eliminate plastic. We got their ideas, switch over to digitalization, eliminate paper from your documents. And you won't believe in the last 2 years, our main KPIs of every employee working in this head office has been to eliminate paper totally and get digitalized. And then we count how many trees did we protect by using recycled paper, or annual report, sustainability report, everything is done on recycled paper. Plastic we have totally eliminated from the office. And now we are measuring carbon footprint in terms of the AC usage, the energy usage, and the water wastage. So we want to be, ISO certified on that basis by next year for this particular small head office, which is about 40 people. So, and everybody is contributing very, very enthusiastically towards this exercise. So, these small steps, which reach out to your heart that, yes, we are doing sustainability. I think that is more important than in Harvard study or big training programs or PowerPoint presentations on ESG.
I think nothing is as impactful as actually, putting, getting, sort of your hands dirty, if you will, getting everybody involved. And making it a project, yes. Right? So it's not just on paper, it's not just a PPT presentation that somebody's made. It's actually, we are getting something done. There are tangible results that you can see, and you're actually measuring the outcomes as well. So fantastic work, Amit and NOCIL. I think it's really something, kudos to all of you for having really taken this along. All right, so we discuss a lot about ESG, BRSR, the regulations, where we are headed, all of that. But increasingly, there is a focus about or around how this is not just the right thing to do, from a compliance perspective, but also the smart thing to do. And this is because organizations are finding that there is a competitive advantage to be had, right? So, for example, are investors evaluating organizations on the basis of corporate governance, ESG, practices? How is it? And of course, I'm sure we can have a larger conversation on this, but just wanted to understand from both of you that if where an organization really takes initiatives forward, in complying with the BRSR regulations, the principles, integrating it with your code of conduct, and then really, as both of you have outlined, taking it to your workforce, ensuring that they're all really a part of it. Are you seeing a benefit from the perspective of either how your organization's sort of valuation or stock price is, how are investors saying, hey, we want to invest in an organization that is really compliant? Is it a part of due diligence? Are you seeing that in the larger community as well, since both of your senior leaders in this space? Is that something that you've advantage to be had?
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So, Alex, my experience is that the public shareholders and the global shareholders, particularly the foreign institutional investors, the mutual funds, the foreign mutual funds, they are looking up at ESG as a very important criteria before they plan to invest in your shares. And they very closely examine your annual report, their BRSR, everything independently, also whether you are really compliant with the ESG and sustainability measures and you are well intentioned towards that. Now, just to share a small statistic, see, there's a study which says that 85% investors today worldwide consider ESG as one of the most important factors for due diligence. Okay. Another study which says that 90% of companies either have or are developing a formal strategy to ensure complete sustainability across the organization. So it's now Indian markets are absolutely integrated with the global markets, and proxy advisory agencies which are looking at the notices of annual meetings, they are giving a direction that, oh, don't vote for this resolution, there's not an interest. They are looking at sustainability as a very important factor of a corporate. And once they issue a diktat or an advice, I think all mutual funds, all foreign institutional investors vote against you if you are not really sustainable. That is going to happen now in the coming times. So we are absolutely integrated with the global markets, and globally, I think it is one of the most important factors by which an organization is going to be rated. Instead of just a financial credit rating or compliance rating, it has to be an ESG rating. And ESG rating is going to be very active another 2-3 years down the line.
Yeah, just to add, I think
go ahead,
from
Shujath, please.
investor standpoint, I mean, I am increasingly seeing ESG diligence as one of the stream, wherein they really want to understand before investing, either in the startups or whether it is PE, venture capital and all of that. And as we know, large private equity companies have impact funds and social funds and all of those aspects. So from that standpoint, I think ESG diligence has become important. And apart from that, I think financial institution, banks as well, either in terms of funding, along with the evaluation of the financial metrics, I think non-financial metrics like ESG also has become significantly more and more, and that's something which I am seeing as well. And from a business standpoint, let's say the multilateral funding, the World Banks and all of these ADBs and all. For some specific funding, I think there is a specific ESG evaluation as well. And if you look into the trade, specifically working with companies in Europe or US and UK and so on and so forth, for a bidding standpoint, I think in terms of the vendor diligence, unlike the standard vendor diligence, now we are also seeing a specific questionnaires around ESG as well. So if a company is good in technology, good in business and all, and if they really want to win the contract, they equally need to have their business practices aligned to these aspects, because it also has an equal weighting. So from an investor standpoint, from a financial institutions, banks, and the funding agencies aspect, and also in terms of the clients, I think all of these become very important and definitely a competitive advantage as well. I mean, if you want to really attract best talent, best capital, and best clients, and I think it's absolutely important for the companies to work on these practices, whether it is mandatory to you or not by BRSR. But my view is that in future, apart from these top 1,000 companies in India, I anticipate the number to increase, and maybe in a couple of years, Ministry of Corporate Affairs also may come up with some abridged form like BRSR, but I think that is going to happen. But more importantly, the contractual push, the financial institution push, investors push definitely will be there. But more than thinking it like a push, I think it is definitely a competitive advantage as well.
Agreed. I think it's clear the verdict's out that investors really view this as a plus or a competitive advantage. Definitely, it's something that uh, not just investors, but by the sound of it, even potential customers, whether it's a retail customer or a business B2B customer, clearly they're also evaluating organizations from where they buy or purchase as to whether they or what their ESG practices are, policies are. Are they? Some actually go deeper into the due diligence to actually send feet on the ground to see whether the compliance is actually happening as it is there on paper. So very clearly, the world has moved, if not is moving, has moved to measuring organizations on ESG. And so if you're an organization that's aspiring to really grow, clearly these are some of the things that you have to follow. Yeah. One point that I wanted to ask both of you before we close out this topic is, are you seeing talent? Ultimately to deliver what we want to deliver, every organization needs the very best talent that is out there. Are you seeing talent actually ask or sort of start to move or gravitate towards organizations that are more compliance focused, ESG focused? Are employees really, or potential employees or talent really asking that question, or is it just we are a little bit away from that as of now?
Yeah, Antony, I have a thought. It also links to the previous point what you mentioned. The current generation, the consumers, I think they are largely more aware of all these, parameters, of whether it's on environment, social, or governance, and all those aspects. And you can see the examples. Some of the, young generations focus on the packaged commodities, or the food-related aspects, as you can see, in terms of focus on how their particular product is made. If it is FMCG, what kind of a packaging material is being used, what kind of ingredients are being used, is this organic, and whether a lot of water consumption is happening. I'm seeing an awareness of the current generation as a consumer, or as a one who's really evaluating various products, be it textiles, be it air travel and all. I think that is something which is enhanced. Now if you look from the talent attraction standpoint, I think this is the same talent which companies want to attract. And the Gen Z, or Gen Alpha, whatever we may want to call, I think their approach is completely different than, I think 2-3 generations back, where there was focus on job security and all. The dynamics have changed. We are in an era wherein people are more vocal, generating content, being assertive, right? And they want to be part of those organizations who are doing really something good and not impacting the environment and society and the community. So I think I am seeing it as a trend wherein the talent is also doing due diligence on the companies, and some way or the other they feel that they don't want to be part of an organization, although it might be doing good in terms of the profits and all that stuff. If their people practices are not good, if their environmental practices are not good, they don't want to be part of those organizations, preferably. I think that is a trend which I am seeing, and I think this trend possibly would be more in next few years to come.
Very good point, Shujath. In fact, talent is, all things being equal, if you are weighing 2 or 3 job opportunities, then definitely there is a good possibility that you're going to find that talent is gravitating towards those organizations that are, there's greater awareness about the kind of organization you're joining. So if you're more, environmentally conscious, ESG focused, what if you're, where you're sourcing your materials from. These are all things that people are starting to look at. I know for a fact that when 20-30 years ago, folks like me or my friends or everybody I knew and interacted with, I don't think this was even something that we looked at, right? But today the world we live in is very, very different. Fair point. Amit, your thoughts?
Yeah. See, I'll tell you, when we started this whole exercise, we found that we were weak on one footing, that was gender diversity. Okay, being a chemical plant, The common notion in the company was that females cannot be employed in the plant because the chemicals, which are, though we have the best of hygiene and health systems, they impact the hormonal balance of females. And that was a common notion, and that was a stand being taken by people. But then when we did the research, we found that no, worldwide, all chemical plants have complete gender diversity. They all have female employees. In fact, there are chemical plants which are absolutely only 100% female employees. So this whole thinking then changed. And then when we started recruiting in the last 1 year, female employees for our plant, for our offices, I think females are very much aware of this diversity thing. And the first question they used to ask is that, sir, are you really serious about taking us? Because we feel that, this company was averse to, we said nothing doing. We have a full-fledged policy on diversity, and we feel you can deliver equally as compared to men. And that's how, I think by next year we should be there. But it was a tough exercise, but I think that perception changed. The moment the objective of the company becomes ESG focused and diversity focused, I think the entire notion changed, overnight, that we can't employ females or we can employ females. So that thing underwent, I see big metamorphosis on that area.
No, wonderful. And I think that is clearly we can see that talent, consumers, investors are all sort of heading towards greater consciousness with respect to this area. And it's clear that they're going to vote with their feet, with their money, with their minds when it comes to this. So organizations need to really be, sort of up there from a compliance perspective in order to stay competitive. All right. So now, just to round off our discussion, I think it's clear that the business case is there. It is clear that organizations have to be focused. ESG, BRSR, UN SDG goals, sustainable goals. All of that is all in the mix, and every organization, not just in India but globally, needs to head in that direction. How important, we keep talking about tone from the top and leadership and their commitment. But would be great if you both could share a little bit about, how all of this, the whole ethical behavior, sustainable practices, how do we push it out throughout the organization? How important is the tone from the top, as they say, right? How important is it for leaders to walk the talk, if you will? It's not just enough to say that, okay, fine, I need you all to comply with this. But are you seeing leaders really walking the talk? Are you really seeing them going out there and saying, we have to do it as an organization, and I, as your leader, I'm going to lead from the front in sort of taking the lead on this? Your thoughts, folks?
Yeah, I think, Alex, when we started with the training programs, particularly with the support of Rainmaker on this, we introduced that first for our board of directors, then all our senior executives. And believe me, when they started the training program on ethics, on POSH, they were extremely interested in the video. But when it came to testing part, a lot of them had issues on clearing the tests. And there was a lot of, but ultimately when they cleared the test and they ensured that, the score is not reported anywhere that they flunked. But that is where the entire tone started coming in very deeply. They understood the objective of these training programs for the common employee, and that's how the push came. And then we started doing it across the organization with all the e-learning modules and testing. People had tough time initially, but the videos were so simplistic that they were able to understand. The only suggestion I had is that if it is done in the local language, it makes more difference, and people understand it very well. And once they understand it, I think, yes, they are all there. They are there, definitely intention to comply with it. So it actually started from the top. We started with the board, training the board, and then we came to the senior executives, and then the employees lower down.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Amit, for the kind words. And we have actually now sort of gone that extra mile in terms of ensuring that we have far greater coverage on local language, because I think that's a very key aspect of ensuring that you've got everybody's buy-in. Fair enough. Shujath, your thoughts, leadership, commitment. What can leaders do to really sort of drive the initiative?
Antony, I think connecting to the previous point, the competitive advantage, where we all agreed that if a company, while achieving profits and all those metrics, and equally, working towards good practices with respect to the vendors, contractors, and having good people practices, good environmental practices, and, wherein the stakeholders also are happy. And when they see that as a competitive advantage, I think, the board or the leadership, really understand that this is something which they need to really drive. And of course, tone at the top is definitely important, but as I say, tone at the top followed by the mood at the middle and the belief at the bottom is equally important. And but naturally, the leadership has a little bit more responsibility to be the torch bearer. And when we say that, we may have policies, processes, and all those aspects, but when the leadership takes as a sponsorship, and when they really push this particular program, and being seen as vocal, and where they see some of these leaders also giving examples and walking the talk, I think then it becomes really important. And when we talk about that, it definitely talks about how some of these aspects are part of the vision or a mission or part of the values. I think that goes a long way when you talk some of these aspects and put it as part of a strategy or a priorities or a vision or a values as appropriate. And more importantly, how the companies KRAs or key performance indicators or your compensation philosophies are equally linked to all these aspects. Unless and until we have a reward system or a consequence management system, it will be a little difficult. So when we talk about all these aspects, I think it is equally important to integrate, it to the vision or to the strategy, and also the KRAs and KPIs as well. And I think then, people see it as a very strong commitment, from the board and the leadership.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. And I think it's very, very clear now that across boards and leadership across our country are increasingly focused on ensuring greater compliance, not just in letter, but also in spirit with, the BRSR guidelines, and being more sort of ESG focused, if you will. And I think we are seeing a lot of movement towards integrating all of this, making the code of conduct very comprehensive, and also taking the CoC out there to their workforce and saying, hey, this is the CoC, comply with it in all aspects, and seeing if there are ways in which one can actually bring out all of that through very interesting, engaging, training programs. I think Shujath shared some very interesting things that they're doing at Sustainability. So did Amit. Some of their initiatives that they're doing at NOCIL. Clearly, organizations are upping their game by several notches, not just a notch or two, but several notches. And it's been a absolutely fascinating discussion. Amit and Shujath, I feel like I have learned a lot from the two of you today in terms of all of the initiatives that your respective organizations are doing. And I hope everybody who's watching this also gets takes away, some of these key initiatives that are happening in organizations across India. It's a fantastic learning experience, in my view. I've learned a lot, and I hope all of you have as well. Amit, a big thank you to you for coming, joining us today, participating, lending us your valuable time. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Shujath, likewise, Shujath, really appreciate the fact that you've spent time from your schedule to share some of the valuable insights, from your experience as well as that of your organization. So thank you both very, very much. And I look forward to future conversations as well. Maybe we can really bring out additional aspects of what you both doing at your respective organizations. So thank you both. It's been a wonderful discussion, and thank you.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Shujath. It was a big learning experience with your experiences. I think it was fantastic. We really
thanks.
Look forward to more of such interactions.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.